Welcome back to the Teach Out on Impeachment. I'm back here again with Barbara McQuaid, who's a professor from practice at the University of Michigan Law School and former United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. Thanks for coming back.
Oh, thanks, Benjamin. Glad to be here.
All right, so in this quick conversation, I want to talk about whistleblowers. So first, can you tell us a little bit more about what is a whistleblower and what does that process entail?
Well, the law provides protection for people who are whistleblowers. That is, someone who detects fraud, waste, or abuse in their employment as a federal employee and wants to come forward and report it, but also fears retaliation from the report. And so the law protects that person, their identity, and protects their employment from retaliation, that is, being terminated or being demoted because they reported this thing that was going on in their organization.
So you said whistleblowers are protected. Can they be prosecuted?
Well, they could, not simply because of what they did as a whistleblower. You can't sort of bootstrap the whistleblower protection laws because you committed some other crime. So it isn't sort of immunity for everything you might have done. But the idea is that it gives you protection if you pass up through the chain of command in your organization this fraud, waste, or abuse that you've detected.
So what are those parameters? What is that process if you were to be a whistleblower?
Well, it depends on the organization, but most recently we've seen this come up in the intelligence community. And so in that context, it's especially dicey because the information that the person gets is sensitive or classified. They sign documents to say, I agree not to disclose this with the world in exchange for my employment,
sure,
under penalty of criminal prosecution, termination, breach of contract, and other things. And so when a person is in that situation, it's especially sensitive. And so the idea is if they provide it to their superior, in the intelligence community instance, to the inspector general of the intelligence community, that person does first an initial investigation himself to look for two things. One, is the complaint credible? So, if it's a frivolous complaint, then he can dispense with it. And is it of urgent concern, which has a legal definition? If so, he passes it to the Director of National Intelligence, who shall advance it to the Congressional Intelligence Committees. And it's supposed to be Congress then who has that oversight role to get to the bottom of whether there's something here that needs to be changed that's going on within the intelligence community.
That's really helpful to think about. So you're talking about federal whistleblowers. Are there similar kind of opportunities for folks to go about reporting misconduct or illicit activity outside of the federal government that parallels?
So states have their own rules, and in fact, corporations often have whistleblower protections as well. In the era of good corporate governance, corporate employees are encouraged to come forward when they become aware of fraud, waste, or abuse within their organization. It's seen as a way to protect the organization. If they detect a problem early before it gets out of hand, they can nip it in the bud before it begins to permeate the organization.
So thinking about whistleblowers at large on kind of a broad context, why are they important for a democracy? So
in a democracy, there's this incredible tension between, on the one hand, transparency in government, information that is out in the public so that we can have an informed electorate and make good decisions about whether our government is being conducted the way we want it to be. But on the other hand, protecting public safety and national security. We can't share our playbook with the world, or our adversaries will have it as well. And so if you work in this world, an example is of someone who worked in this world is a woman named Reality Winner, who was a contractor for NSA, and she discovered some information about Russian interference with elections that was troubling to her, and she shared it with the media, which is exactly the wrong thing to do. I think she had good intentions but did it the wrong way, and she was prosecuted for under the Espionage Act for disclosing classified information to someone not authorized to have it, which is a member of the media. So instead, the idea of whistleblower protection is to try to draw a balance between those tensions so that if there is someone on the inside who discovers a serious problem, they have a way to get that information out of the executive branch and into the legislative branch where Congress serves an oversight role. They have to go through proper channels, but if they do, they will be protected and the agency will be protected by having that information go to Congress so that they can decide whether there's an abuse that needs to be remedied.
Are there any historical examples that come to mind to help contextualize what's happening with this current impeachment inquiry?
In the current impeachment, we only have, the three in history. We've got Bill Clinton, whose problem was obstruction of justice and perjury. We've got Richard Nixon, who was, of course, accused of his involvement and cover-up in the burglary at the Watergate Hotel. And then Andrew Johnson, who was involved in violating appointments clauses. None of those resulted in actual removal from office. Andrew Johnson was impeached and acquitted at trial. President Nixon resigned before he could be impeached, and President Clinton was acquitted at trial as well. So we've never gone all the way to the end to see what removal from office looks like, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think there's one lesson that is apparent from all of this, which is impeachment is to be used sparingly. It is a device there for true abuse of office and shouldn't be used simply for disagreements about political policy, but should be used as a way to protect the country from a president who's abusing his power.
Perfect. Well, we can end on that note. Thank you so much for helping explain the whistleblower process and providing additional context.
Thanks, Benjamin.
Great. And thank you for joining us in this part of the Teach Out. We look forward to continue the conversation with you in the rest of the Teach Out.